The Supreme Court hearing arguments today regarding President Trump's push to end birthright citizenship. So far, the High Court focusing on the power of lower court judges and whether they should be allowed to block presidential policies. So let's bring in courts and legal reporter with our partners at thehill.com, Zach Schoenfeld, who was in that hearing. Zach, great to see you. So talk about what the justices heard and the significance of the 14th Amendment.
Hey, Nichole, one of the key questions coming into today's argument was how willing would the Supreme Court justices be in delving into that issue of the 14th Amendment? Because at this stage of the birthright citizenship case, the Trump administration is not asking the Supreme Court to provide a definitive ruling as to whether the executive order is constitutional. Instead, the administration has asked the court to rein in lower judges that have issued nationwide blocks on the executive order so that it would only apply to the parties that have actually sued in court. But what we saw across about 2.5 hours of questioning at these arguments is that the justices kept coming back to the merits of that 14th Amendment question and whether Trump's order complies with the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause. You had some of the court's liberal justices essentially tipping their hand a bit, really expressing doubts about the constitutionality of that order. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, one of President Obama's appointees at one point, said pretty clearly that she believes that the order violates the Supreme Court's precedents. Justice Elena Kagan, another of Obama appointees, she also was expressing skepticism. But we didn't hear quite as much on that from the conservative justices. Now, this was quite a wide-ranging argument. It wasn't just about nationwide injunctions in the 14th Amendment. There was also quite a bit of discussion about the rule of law and respecting precedent. There were a lot of questions being peppered at the Trump administration's lawyer, D. John Sauer, who you just heard in the clip a moment ago, asking him, about the administration's approach, and if there's no nationwide injunction, how would they respect the Supreme Court's ruling? Take a listen to what Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, President Biden's appointee to the court, here's what she said at one point.
I appreciate that you go back to English common law and the Chancery Court, but they had a different system. The fact that courts back in English Chancery couldn't enjoin the king, I think, is not analogous or indicative of what courts can do in our system, where the king, quote unquote, the executive, is supposed to be bound by the law. And the court has the power to say what the law is.
So a lot of questions like that. At one point, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who's Trump's most junior appointee to the Supreme Court, she even seemed taken aback at one point to one of the Solicitor General's answers when he said it was the administration's general practice, if the Supreme Court was to issue such an opinion, to not enforce the executive order against anyone, even non-parties. So quite a wide-ranging argument today.
And Zach, obviously it's difficult to predict. None of us has a crystal ball, but what do you think is likely to happen? And then what happens in the interim until the High Court does issue its decision?
Yeah, the court seemed pretty divided today. This does not seem like one where we're going to have a unanimous ruling as the court does in so many of its cases. Instead, the court did seem quite divided. It's unclear who's going to win the day. As you try to make that counting to 5 during the argument of where the 5 votes are, you certainly had several conservative justices expressing skepticism about the ability for these judges to issue nationwide injunctions. You heard that from justices like Justice Clarence Thomas, one of the court's most senior members. He's been a longtime skeptic of these nationwide injunctions. And at one point noted that he said, quote, the nation has survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions. So it seems that the Trump administration perhaps convinced at least a few justices, but obviously the million-dollar question is, can they get to 5 votes? Now, you also asked what happens in the interim. As of now, the birthright citizenship order is blocked nationwide. The Trump administration has no ability to enforce it anywhere in the country. So there's not expected to be any change on the ground until the Supreme Court rules. And even if the Trump administration does win here, their lawyer today said that there would be a 30-day period before the order would actually go into effect. So it seems like we still got some time before there's any chance of this order going into effect.
All right, courts and legal reporter from thehill.com, Zach Schoenfeld, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.